Perfect. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Science Dean Speaker Series on environmental sustainability. Also, anybody who's joining us online, thank you for joining us as well. My name is Ruben Orangare. I'm going to be your moderator for this afternoon. I am the Employer Relations Program Manager with GCU team. And I thought I'd just put a little plug in here. If you are not connected on Career Connections, please make sure you check that out on your student portal. This is the best way to get connected to different career opportunities, internships, job postings, and everything you want to get connected to when it comes to your career after GCU. And so let's go ahead and meet our panelists this afternoon. We'll start with Mark Hartman. He is the Chief Sustainability Officer with the City of Phoenix. Mark, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Mark Hartman, City of Phoenix. And my role is really Phoenix's vision is to be the most sustainable desert city on the planet. I originally came from Vancouver, where the goal was to be the greenest city in the world. So when I came to Phoenix, I thought that was a good, nice transition over. So that was good. And we start with some long-term ambitious goals. And just wanted to say, I'm here representing Phoenix, but I would say there are thousands of cities that really have ambitious goals and are doing some really great things around the globe. So as I speak about city and Phoenix, it's like, wow, look at all the things Phoenix is doing. It's actually many cities are doing these things. So you can kind of apply them no matter where you want to go or reside. But yeah, no, good to be here. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Up next, we have Michael Hwang. He is the Sustainability Sales Strategy Director with Microsoft. Mike, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael, and as he mentioned, I am a Sustainability Sales Strategy Director at Microsoft. So basically selling technology solutions to help customers and companies and governments reduce their carbon footprint or aggregate data for reporting purposes. I am from Phoenix. I grew up in Ahwatukee, so I went to Desert Vista High School, and most of my degrees are from Arizona, so kind of bleed that desert. And I formerly came from Intel, doing miscellaneous things like environmental engineering with hazardous waste and water engineering, as well as supply chain responsibility. Thank you.
And I just want to say you're really lucky to have Michael here today, because as we went by the gaming floor, he started to go that way and we had to pull him up the stairs because he wanted to stay there on the gaming floor. So
I think everybody wants to go to the gaming floor and check out the arena. All right. And finally, we have Kaysey England, Zero Waste Specialist from the City of Phoenix.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaysey, also from the City of Phoenix, because City of Phoenix is so great. So I am from City of Phoenix Public Works Department. Responsible for waste diversion. Here at City of Phoenix, we have a very ambitious goal of zero waste by 2050. That's about 90% waste diversion away from our landfills. I'm really excited to share with you, what I do, and just excited to be here in general.
Perfect. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon. Really what today's topic is all about is what sustainability looks like in Phoenix and really around the world in a variety of different areas. So as you guys are listening to them, if you have any questions, we will have an open Q&A here at the end. So keep those questions ready, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer them. But let's go ahead and dive right in. Really, the first thing that we want to know is what inspired you to go into your current field? And how did you even find out about opportunities in sustainability?
All right. So, I grew up in Northern California, and I feel I had a very big impression on myself. Growing up in Northern California, sustainability is the way of life. It's just normalized. And so when I came to Arizona to go to school at ASU, I noticed immediately a big difference in sustainability behavior. And so it pushed me even further to continue on in the field of sustainability. I did not know exactly which area of sustainability I wanted to go into, but I knew that sustainability was a way that I can, have purpose. I can do something meaningful. I'm not just, going into a field looking for a job just for money. I wanted to have something that I can make a, meaningful impact on others in my community and even further. So I even chose working for waste diversion on a whim. I wanted to actually be more like Michael here in corporate, business. My first, degree was in business with a concentration in sustainability, and I had, a lot of interest to then help, large corporations. But as I, continued further, I shied away from it, but I definitely might even consider going back. But I really love what I do right now with waste diversion at City of Phoenix, and I'm just we're responsible for a lot of education and outreach within the community, and I just love going to my job every day, speaking to members of the community, helping them with anything sustainability oriented, and I just have a lot of fun with my job. So.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. For me, it really came from, I think, my upbringing in the respects that when you're a kid and you're watching movies, there's a lot of really inspirational movies out there that really motivates you to apply your professional career into helping others. So some movies that come to mind, if you haven't seen them yet, is A Civil Action with John Travolta about contamination of trichloroethylene and how it hurt a lot of people, including children in that community, as well as Aaron Brockovich, which is one about hexavalent chromium contamination from water supplies. And you see that, and then you start going to college, you start wondering how you can get a degree that would help remediate or solve these problems. So that naturally was a fit for chemical engineering for me. And one of my first professional experiences was as an environmental engineer, and a lot of it was related to EPA regulations and designing infrastructure to remediate things like that. So I think part of it also is my upbringing, aside from the movies, was also very culturally attuned to not be wasteful about anything, whether that's because my parents were cheap or something, or because it was really about conserving the resources that we have available. So I think a combination of, my upbringing as well as some of the inspirational movies I saw, which if you haven't seen these movies yet, they're actually really good. I'm not sure what streaming service they're on, but those are good ones.
And yeah, so here from the longtime sustainability person, probably the oldest one on the panel for sure. When I actually got a job at the City of Vancouver in sustainability, I told everyone I knew, a job in sustainability. And they go, what's that? Never heard of it. Like, it was not really a word used in society whatsoever. And it was really, as a first generation sustainability, there were 6 cities in Canada and the US that actually had someone that was even considering sustainability. So it was really the early days. And I think it was really undefined. A lot of the things we focus on today weren't even thought of yet as being areas that we would get into. So I've really seen the progression, how quickly it changed to being, really a household and a way of thinking and a way of doing business, both of its community and in cities. And so it's really been, when I just thought, it's kind of like energy efficiency was kind of how I got introduced. I was doing energy efficiency for utility, and I thought, I'll kind of do this for a city instead. And it kind of made its way to all the doors that opened as far as the whole wide category of sustainability.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's really interesting to see just kind of the variety of this pathway. And just looking around at all the students that we have here, what advice or words of wisdom would you give to students who are considering this pathway into environmental stability, or they haven't quite committed to that pathway, or on that pathway, they're wondering if they want to keep moving forward? What kind of words of wisdom would you give them to either entering this career path or to stay a course?
I would say, explore all the different opportunities within the field of sustainability. It could be in waste diversion, it could be in corporate social responsibility, it could be in energy efficiency. Just explore it and find what you're most passionate about. For me, I was most passionate about food waste recovery. Food waste has been a huge, topic that I really think there's so much potential for. And, we see a lot of, challenges with feeding a growing population, but we're really not necessarily focusing on how efficient we can be with our food system. And our food system is so important, because if we're wasting 30 to 40% of everything we grow with a growing population that we have, we're not going to meet the demand. So if we can tap into that 30 to 40%, we can make some huge improvements on feeding everyone around the world and using less resources.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is that you don't need to have sustainability in your job title to do sustainability functions. Sustainability is such a broad spectrum of disciplines and multifunctional areas that you can be a supply chain professional or a finance, accountant, civil engineer, chemical engineer, other professions too, with working in the city, public works and stuff like that, and still apply your expertise to a sustainability type discipline. So one example of that is if you're manufacturing like EVs as an example, chances are the process engineer may not care about sustainability, but contributing to that world by ensuring the high yields of the automobiles out there also. And what I would also say is get a diversity of different experiences out there, especially at your age and your current stature. It's possible to switch around various jobs, whether through internships or volunteer experiences or even coursework. And once you can identify what you have a lot of passion around, similar to what you said, I think it helps kind of gears you in those directions. So definitely get a lot of different tastes of the various disciplines out there, figure out which ones you like, and then figure out how you can apply those to sustainability.
Yeah, I'd certainly jump on that one for sure. The internship is really interesting, as we've had in my department alone had dozens of interns over the last number of years, and there's been as they do it and they actually get very excited that they're working and helping different departments, they actually really see where their passion is. They didn't realize it. They kind of go, oh, this is what I want to do. And it's been, I think it is really something that no matter what field you're going into, you really want to see how can I make this field more sustainable? And you could be transformative. The idea is sustainability actually is a really good business case. This idea of, we just waste so much in everything we do. Everything we do is just wasteful. And we can actually transform what we do. And even in, I'm been an office manager. So, well, okay, actually you could transform all your putting composting, recycling, and you could actually source sustainable materials. And so really, no matter what you're doing, there's a real opportunity to transform that. And I would say the biggest opportunities here in Arizona, where you just really see lots of opportunity where there's not a lot of regulation. So everybody's just doing whatever's easiest and or what they think is easiest. But it actually is a very costly approach. And so lots of opportunity there.
Is that a low-key call for resumes for those internships, Mark?
Oh, there's internships in lots of places that you could do, but I do recommend it's a great approach to just get a sense of what it's like. And it actually really helps people hone their skills before they have to go get a real job, So, for sure.
Perfect. And I think with the business and the manufacturing growth that's in Arizona, I think there's a lot of possibility for economic or environmental sustainability in a variety of fields, both business and manufacturing, engineering, all of that. But kind of moving forward to your own personal journeys, your careers and pathways, what were some of the challenges or obstacles that you faced as you were entering this field, and how did you overcome those obstacles?
I didn't even know what I was going to do. I was like, I have all these degrees. I have a lot of experience, but nobody's really hiring in what I want to do. And, I myself, I never like to settle for anything. And I didn't want to just go for, a paycheck. I knew that I wouldn't be happy if I just went for a paycheck. But so I would say, just go for whatever feels right. You can either take a path of being picky and needing to wait, or you can, just get your foot in the door and then see what options are out there. So either way, you can go for it. When I was discouraged about finding a job in sustainability, I focused on a small business of mine, and that small business was selling used golf balls, actually. And it actually turned out to be the best thing that happened during that time. My business exploded, and we really had I was able to then work with my family. I got to do something that's still, in the field of sustainability, but also make a living for it. And it was very rewarding to work for myself. So when I didn't see anything out there, in the field, I created it myself. So just think of all the opportunities that you have. So.
I want to say that your challenges were based on you being a Sun Devil and not a Wildcat. So there, but actually I have a couple of degrees from ASU also, so I can't really make fun of that.
We're number one in innovation.
So in reality, I think I mentor a lot of students, and one thing I used to tell them was that if you study sustainability, that's actually not a very good degree to get for job prospects, and then she quite a bit of experiences previously. Nowadays, there's been a lot of changes over the past half decade in the amount of jobs in sustainability, and a lot of that is driven by the regulation. So if you are not familiar with the ongoing proposal of the Securities Exchange Commission on climate disclosures, that impacts every public company. So learning things like carbon accounting, what scope 1, 2, and 3 is from a climate standpoint is crucial to be able to land some of those jobs, or how to assess ESG risks of companies, figuring out where forced labor might be in your supply chain. So take advantage of the now, because right now is a lot of opportunities popping up. And I think some barriers that did exist in the past was the relative unknownness of where things are going. And that still does exist now. But I think with a lot of momentum, with the regulations, through the call to action, through a lot of investments of technologies or carbon capture areas, then I think now is a great time to take advantage of that and the experience in sustainability.
Thank you. And I'd add one of the things, going more a personal challenge, things that I've seen over my career. It was interesting in the early days of sustainability. It was very much a real doom message, where I had a coworker who used to always say the most common thing if we were going to quote him and say, we're all going to die. You read an article and say, we're all going to die. Like, oh, look at this, what's happening with methane in the Arctic, we're all going to die. And so it was just, it was really interesting. But the message really does paralyze people as far as saying, oh no, I'm just, okay, well, I can't deal with that. And it just shuts them down. And so as in sustainability, the most interesting thing is inspiring is actually relying on the human innovation. Like I say, we have a challenge. We, with all our science and engineering, is it possible to make nature better off as a result of us being on this planet? Are we like a virus, like we described in, the Matrix or something? Or can we actually make nature thrive and at the same time kind of improve quality of life for everyone? What if we have clean air, clean water, healthy ecosystems? Wouldn't that be awesome? So really talking about that, about how can we do that? And the most common thing I ask when I didn't have success, it never happened quick enough for me, but it took time. I had to wait for people to kind of come along and get used to ideas. As I'd suggest them, and for directors and things, they take a long time to be kind of think, but eventually they kind of really catch it and move on. And one of the most common questions was, if you had to do it, how would you do it? This is the most powerful question I think I have in my role is, look, I know it really can't be done, but if you had to do it, how would you do it? And then they go, wow, well, I guess you could, and they come up with some really great innovative ideas. So I think relying on human innovation, I think, is really one of my biggest lessons learned that I didn't take advantage of, because that's really where it's the most exciting things happen.
Thanks. And Mark, you really nailed it with success doesn't ever seem to come fast enough. And I think with all the obstacles, it's important to celebrate the successes and the small victories. So with that being said, how do you set goals and celebrate personal achievements while progressing towards those goals?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I always ask myself, did I make a positive impact today? Or I'll ask myself, did I teach someone something new, or did they teach me something new? I mean, there's so much room for personal growth by just reflecting on what happens every single day. So enjoying those small, little victories is a great way. I am really proud of the work that I've done with some nonprofit organizations. One being Borderlands Produce Rescue. It's a great nonprofit here in Arizona. They rescue food that would normally end up in the landfill due to minor imperfections or surplus, and they divert it out to local communities, to churches, to schools. And at ASU, I was able to then introduce it to ASU when I was there, and we distributed for 3 years where members of the community can receive 75 pounds of produce for a $15 donation. So it helped really bridge the gap between food waste and food insecurity. And just another one that I'm really proud of is with the schools that I've been working with City of Phoenix. We're working with 4 elementary schools on food waste recovery, and we're turning that into compost. We're keeping as much away from the landfill as possible. And in the process, we're teaching staff, we're teaching the school districts that, it can be possible to minimize costs too on their end while benefiting the environment and teaching the kids some valuable lessons. So just do something that's, really important to you.
Yeah, great points there. One thing I'll say is have the end state be well established in your head of what you want, whether it's in a project with something going on with a company or supplier or your personal goals. And having a pretty good idea, then figuring out what tools, networks, and resources you have available at your disposal to get there. A lot of times you don't have a scripted plan to get from point A to point B, but if you have a pretty good idea of what the end state is, and then an opportunity comes up or you run across someone, a lot of times you might meet a lot of people or see something without context and just assume that's something that you may forget about later. But if you actually have that context of, oh, my end state looks like this, then you understand how you can either use or leverage those different resources to get to that end state here. And one thing that I think students don't do a great job at, so this is a big hint to all of you here, is leverage the network that you do have. So if your parents know people, if your friends know people, even like panelist leaders right now, feel free to connect with at least me and probably others to ask questions about this stuff. And I was talking to a class about last month at GCU and kind of put my contact information up there about like, feel free to reach out. Maybe like 3 students did or like just connected with it, but the vast majority of students probably will forget who I am. And it's a really valuable resource when you have professionals in this field to network with. That way you can ask questions, bounce off ideas, and even if an opportunity comes up, we think about the students sometimes and say, hey, there's a resume opportunity at City of Phoenix. And those type of networking connections can really drive a lot of your ambitions and your end state with that.
When Alice fell down the rabbit hole, she said to Beer Rabbit, which way should I go? And he says, well, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So it's really important to decide, okay, where are you wanting to go? And that will really determine, and that's the first step. Before you figure out the path, you need to first think about where do you want to really get to. Even on setting the 2050 goals for the city, it seemed like a long way away, like 2050, that's so far away. But it's really to say, when it's a proxy for when we're all done, what is it we really want to be? If we wake up now in our future and say, well, what do we want our city, envision our city to be like? And you really have to set that endpoint to say, okay, that's where we want to get to. Then we can actually calculate how to get there and how fast you need to do it. So it's really important you kind of decide where it is you want to be and then setting those and then taking whatever you need to do to kind of take those steps.
Perfect, thank you. Here at GCU, impact and service is so important and such a big value of the university and the student body here. I'd really love to hear your views on environmental sustainability as a service industry. What kind of communities, individuals, or groups can students look forward to serving in this field and in this pathway?
So in whatever pathway that you do choose, I would say the biggest thing is to consider all stakeholders. Consider every single person in your community. If a great tip is you need to start making conversations with people with opposite beliefs of you, political beliefs, religious beliefs, environmental beliefs. Have these tough conversations because the only way to progress is to seek commonality between the opposite ends of the spectrum. Right now, there's a lot of, arguments, in government and stuff on not finding any solutions, but nobody's having, frank conversations but either way, it needs to be done in an area of respect and you can't shoot down other people's opinions. Just listen, comprehend to what they're saying and seek ways that you can find commonality to move forward.
Yeah, I think you really illustrated a big danger in stakeholder management, which is groupthink. So if you spend too much time in the people that think like you start assuming that the things that you think are just obvious, no-brainers. And that's not the reality, especially in a public setting where there's a lot of different beliefs of, backgrounds or politics and stuff like that as well. So managing stakeholders is one of the most important things. So if you have a painful group project, as an example, take that as a learning moment to how to handle people in those cases, because the people not doing their work on group projects does not change when you hit the government or corporate world either. You'll have plenty of people out there who are quote unquote supposed to do something, but maybe their viewpoint is their scope or their budget doesn't actually authorize to do that. So a lot of disagreements may happen. The way you influence people is really crucial to accomplishing your tasks. Ensuring that your goals align with theirs, that really requires active listening and empathy to a large extent. It's not just what you're asserting paternalistically as a requirement or dictation. It's understanding what their objective is, their thought process is as well. And when it comes to kind of getting out there with networking, there's a lot of nonprofits that do exist in Arizona already. So just to name a couple of them, there's one called Greenlight Solutions. They're a student projects organization that allows you to connect with sponsors and do project management type work with them. There's Arizona Sustainability Alliance. They do a lot of education with K-12 schools, as well as tree planting around the community and park cleanups. And there's another one named Arizona Forward that is very in the policy advocacy world, very well connected with governments and industry leaders in that space. So try to figure out which ones that may resonate with you and see if you can get involved with those to get some interest and some background in how to manage stakeholders and addressing those.
certainly jumping on that. So many nonprofits, environmental nonprofits, and those are good opportunities because as you work in those nonprofits, you'll actually have connections to lots of businesses and lots of opportunities to see where you might want to go next. So I know, like for Arizona Sustainability Alliance, they do tree planting, and we were doing it in Phoenix. And so then actually we just hired one of the people that was on their staff and just said, oh, perfect, we got somebody who already knows all this stuff, so let's hire them right from there. And so it worked really well. And I'd also say, although there are a lot of sustainability-based organizations, there's also, I see, a real opportunity around ones that have nothing to do with sustainability to be a sustainability advocate. For example, many churches they'll just put everything in the garbage, all that kind of stuff. I was at an Easter service in Hants Park, and they had 1,500 seats out in Hants Park. It's a pretty cool kind of service, but then they gathered up all the leftover stuff and they just dumped everything, plastic, water bottles, everything, garbage cans. They're going like, I'm like, it's just really opportunities. I think there's great opportunities both in the nonprofit that aren't sustainability minded as well as that are to really be an advocate for those things, because they're really sometimes just simple. Somebody just asking a question is all that's needed.
Awesome. Taking it back over the last couple of years, the pandemic has really changed the landscape in a lot of different industries, both in how companies are reacting to changes from the pandemic to also what their vision is moving forward. But can you give us a little bit of an insight as to how the pandemic affected you in your profession and affected environmental sustainability overall?
Yeah, so let's see. For that, I would say, the pandemic was hard on everyone. It had different effects on other people. For me, I lost some family members, but my business also, grew substantially during the pandemic because golfing is, a solitary sport. So there's lots of ups and downs. And but I think it was just a way to reflect, when we were all, quarantining and stuff on what's important again. So I knew that, after that, I wanted to get back into, the public sector, after, just reflecting on the pandemic itself and noticing even just all the waste that was created out of the pandemic, all the masks, all the tests, if you just think about how much waste that was just created. And at the same time too, it was interesting to see with the pandemic that, it seemed like the environment also was healing at that point when we all weren't going out. So, there's the opposite ends of the spectrum for, how the pandemic affected me and the environment. But, again, it's just a reflection time that I took for seeing what's important for me.
Yeah, I spent the first couple weeks of the pandemic stuck in Ireland, actually, so that's a great experience. Stuck in a hotel room, not sure if you can make it back to the States after a level 4 travel advisory. So pretty vivid memories in that respect also. One thing that the pandemic really illustrated for me and corporate life was the importance of relationships you have professionally in that sense. And what happens was we have a lot of in-person interactions in the office space. You can run people in the hallway, you can grab coffee after a meeting and gossip with your friends there. And these are really build experiences. And when you went at home, you couldn't see people anymore, then the phrase how much relationships you had were crucial to making things happen more suddenly, because you couldn't have that FaceTime interaction, and having that setup for and the process of knowledge is really crucial to be able to accomplish your goals in sustainability or otherwise. And I think there's somewhat of a fallacy in, I think, new students who graduate now, because when you enter a new workforce without being able to meet people in person, you only meet people through Microsoft Teams or Zoom, then there's a little bit of that doesn't really follow through. And I think team builders are really important to establishing camaraderie amongst an organization to be able to be on the same page and aligned about stuff like that. So I think, one importance, I think Arizona was a lot less restrictive about some of the policies. So I think you were able to interact in person still for one extent, but definitely leverage some of those gatherings socially with your professional networks or those nonprofits to be able to build relationships with others, because once you have that, you build trust and you understand their perspective and you're able to get things done a lot more effectively.
Definitely lots to comment on. I'm sure you have lots of comments as well, but I think two of the things that I saw that were pretty significant was certainly allowing people to slow down and say, what do they value? What do they value around their families? What do they value around it? It's really interesting seeing that change, that people actually looked at a lot of career changes during the time. Like, what am I doing? Why am I working? And so it really changed, but it also really accelerated online and remote access, which actually from a sustainable commuting and all those things. It's really significant. I've been advocating it for years, but I would say millions of organizations had strict policy, no remote work whatsoever, and they had to change those policies overnight. And how even at the city, there was like, no, I'll never allow remote working. People will just do whatever they want to do. They won't really work harder or do anything like that. Well, that had to change pretty quickly. And now, it's basically a teleworking. You can a lot of jobs are teleworking, where you can do part-time in the office, part-time at home, and really changed the way people work and that access. And it really did provide a better quality of life for a lot of people, able to have the flex days, work in different locations, even working in different cities for a while. And even as you look at some of the online job applications where 1 in 1,000 would be a remote job. Now 1 in 30 is actually a remote job, or 1 in 20. Like, it's really changed, and it does actually allow a greater flexibility and people to kind of have better opportunities.
Awesome, thank you. And then the final question I have before we open it up to everybody here is, if you could give advice that we haven't already discussed to your undergraduate self, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself, don't put too much pressure on myself. When I was in my undergraduate, I was taking the full course load, 20 plus credit hours a semester. I graduated with 2 degrees, one in business with concentration in sustainability, then business with a concentration in global logistics management, a minor in sociology, a certificate in food system sustainability. I held leadership roles in 2 organizations, and I also had 2 jobs. So I kind of overwhelmed myself, and I think that's what led to my burnout and the discouragement that I felt after not finding any job that I wanted. And so just, lighten your load a little bit if, you might get like that, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. Everything will be okay. You'll follow your path that you're meant to follow. So.
Yeah, one thing I'll reiterate is take advantage of the now again. I also recall, actually, I just graduated from ASU a couple of years ago, but remembering how painful homework was, or studying for a test was, or the stress about academics and grades, and that stuff is important. But also remember how many friends you make in college, and those tight-knit connections you make with people are something to really cherish and can be solidified, because once you get much, a couple of decades down the road, it becomes a lot harder to make really tight-knit connections with friends. So people you meet now and connect with now are really crucial for your development and your support system associated with that too. And again, with group projects, take advantage of leadership positions in that. Don't just drone through the day trying to get through it. You can do plenty of that in professional life at some point with the same burnout that happens, but really take advantage of learning here, because your full-time job right now is to learn and get good grades, but also to connect with people and be involved with things.
I agree with those things, good comments, as well as done research, and they've drawn some conclusions and human nature, and that we greatly overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, and we greatly underestimate what we can do again. That it is a persistence opportunity of saying, look, I've got these, and sometimes it takes a lot longer, seems like a lot longer, but all of a sudden, when I even think of the city, when I joined the city in 2014 in Phoenix, they didn't have a sustainability department. They didn't have a single sustainability goal. They didn't have, they were basically operating the city just without any sort of sense of sustainability aspirations, or they had a tree planting goal. They were going to plant trees or something. So there's like a few things that were good, and they certainly had good water conservation perspective. But even when going to the solid waste group, his solid waste group before he was there, the director at the time said, zero waste, that doesn't make any sense. Like, there's always going to be tons of waste. Like, that's crazy. There's no such thing. I'm not going to adopt a goal like zero waste. Like, that was the first response. And now Phoenix is an international leader on the whole concept of circular economy and zero waste, and coming up with some of those concepts. So really what those opportunities are. So I think set up what you want to do, and I think you will. It just takes time, but we can accomplish it.
The one funny thing was that I'm from Phoenix also, grew up in Ahwatukee, and I'm in the sustainability space, but did not know City of Phoenix is LEED Platinum certified until only about a year ago. And they got LEED certified in 2018. So thinking from where it came from, what Mark mentioned, of not a whole lot to being a leadership of first city being LEED Platinum certified, that's incredible. So stuff like that can definitely make a difference.
Awesome. Thank you. It's great to see the changes and the steps along the way that's really kind of leading Phoenix to take charge and really be a thought leader. So with that said, let's go ahead and open it up to Q&A. So if anybody has any questions for our guests, please let us know. We can get those answered. Does anybody have any questions?
So that big hint I was talking about, are the connections with your panel and ask questions, stuff. Not drone through school day, so much more.
Who here has thought about a career in environmental sustainability, or environmental sustainability is something that has kind of been an interest of? Okay, we got a couple of hands. How many of you have never heard of environmental sustainability?
Crickets.
Well, if there are no questions, I'm sure our guests will love to stick around for a little while and meet, network with you. Like they said, that's really important. Make these connections now, and it's going to definitely help you in the future.
I have a quick story I just want to say.
Absolutely.
Because this study was actually done in a university, done at MIT. They actually had 5 monkeys inside a container, and it was in the 90s, so they allowed to do that then. And they had a ladder going up with bananas at the top. And when any of the monkeys went to go up the ladder to get the bananas, they spray them all down with ice cold water. And the monkeys would scream, "Ah!" And then eventually, when any monkey tried to go up, the other monkeys would beat on the monkey because they didn't want to be sprayed by cold water. So then they took out one of the monkeys, put a new monkey in. The new monkey had been straight up the ladder, and all the other monkeys would beat on him. He didn't know why he was being beat on, but that's because all the other monkeys did it. And they slowly took out each monkey, and even the new monkeys would beat on any monkey that went up the ladder, even though they'd never been sprayed with cold water and knew why they were actually beating on the other monkeys. And eventually, there were all 5 new monkeys in the cage who never been sprayed by cold water. None of them would go up the ladder and to get a banana. They just all beat up if anyone ever did it. And it's like that today. We don't know why we do a lot of things. We say this is how we do it. This is the way we do it, and we think it actually becomes our value system. This is what we do, but actually there's not really a good rationale for it. So a lot of sustainability is actually challenging a lot of those. Even I know of someone who actually used to cut the ends off their roast before they put it in the pan and put the sides on, and then they found out later that the reason they thought that's how you're supposed to do it, and they found out their grandmother did it only because her pan wasn't big enough. But they just thought that's how you could roast if you always cut the ends off. And so so much of what we do and the way we do it is just because, that's the way our parents did it, and that's our value. And we really got to challenge some of those ideas. So anyway, be challengers of that, of the status quo.
And going off that too, question everything. Whatever new role that you have, question everything that's been currently done. You have so many fresh, new, different perspectives that you can offer, and just hone on it. Don't just, let, even your job just train you how they want you to be. Bring your own perspective and, again, question everything.
Thank you all.